Okay, well, it is 6:31 and, we do have a quorum, so let's call the meeting. Could I have a motion for the adoption of remote participation?
So moved.
Second.
We'll do a roll call vote. Pam Nurse-Acton, yes. Steve, I think you're up.
Okay, Arlington's not here. Okay. Steve Ledoux, Concord, yes.
Ford Spalding Dover, yes.
Jennifer Leone Lancaster, yes.
Judy Crawford Lexington, yes.
Jeff Stuhlin Needham, yes.
Alice DeLucas, Joe, yes.
Okay, moving on to for the good of the organization, and I'd like to take a moment to congratulate our superintendent for receiving the award this morning from the Mass Partnerships for Youth for his long-standing commitment to the safety of students and staff at Minuteman. Very, very well deserved and a great honor both for UED and for the school. So congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I was surprised. Seemed everybody knew about it except me. Because when they announced it on this virtual thing with 120 people, they opened the conference room door and people were taking pictures. So no, I'm deeply honored.
Well,
Congratulations.
yes,
Thank you.
very,
I like the
very
list of all the things they said that you had actually done. And it's a very substantial list. And it's an impressive list of accomplishments on this regard, and it's all true. So,
Well, no superintendent does anything alone. If they tell you they do, you probably shouldn't want them as superintendent too long.
okay, maybe, but I know who the point man is.
well, and the fact that it's a collaboration makes it even that much stronger and more meaningful.
Absolutely.
Anything else for the good of the organization? Judy.
Just want to say happy early Thanksgiving to everyone. We're into the holiday season. It's on our doorstep. And as the state keeps saying, just because you test negative once doesn't mean that's it. So that's the only preaching I'm going to do. I'm just going to say, really enjoy turkey, enjoy whoever is at the table. And thank you. Thank you to all the staff and the faculty for getting us this far. Thank you.
Well said, Judy. Thank you. And just to note that Michael has joined us. So.
Hey, y'all.
So we move on to superintendent's report.
Sure. So I sent y'all out a little note today about my experiences in the towns, all the member towns. The boards that we have met with have been neutral to positive. With it's been a really good process, I think, for me to kind of re-engage with the towns in this way again. I realize there's a lot of new people, and we can't assume that they know the Minuteman story. So we had the opportunity to sort of bring new folks up to speed.
You causing everybody stress about this.
Peter, Peter,
I can
Peter,
ask
mute
you
yourself, Peter. Thank you. That's Peter. He's got kids. So we really have the opportunity to make these motions and have a discussion in more detail, but the language in these motions, or the motion, was developed by our bond counsel, Rick Manley, was reviewed with Kevin and Bob and I, and our, I guess you call them our financial consultants around bonding, the folks that actually put the bonds out onto the market and do all the work around helping us accept the best rates.
Bond counsel.
And so there've been, everybody knows who Rick Manley is. So I don't know if you want to have a motion and then a discussion, or it's up to you, Madam Chair.
Why don't we have a motion? Could I have someone make a motion and read the vote? Read the motion?
I'll make it.
Thank you.
I'd like to move that the Minuteman Regional Vocational Technical School District hereby appropriates the sum of $1,900,000 to pay additional costs of completing the athletic fields complex, including but not limited to costs of construction, turf fields, costs of field lighting, site work, and the payment of all other costs incidental and related to, and sums to be expended in the direction of this at the direction of the school committee. And to meet this appropriation, there is hereby authorized under payment to GLC 7116 parent D end of parent and the district agreement as amended as any other enabling authority, the incurring of debt on the full faith of credit of the district in the amount of $1,900,000, any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of the insurance for such bonds or notes may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with GLC 4420, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
I will say,
Furthermore,
oh,
should I
sorry.
We're not quite
Oh.
done.
Keep going, keep
Okay.
reading.
further vote that within 7 days from the date of which this vote is adopted, the secretary by and hereby is instructed to notify the Board of Selectmen of each of the member towns of the district as to the amount and general purpose of the debt herein authorized as required by Chapter 71, Section 16D of the general laws and by the district agreement.
Do we have a second?
Second,
one amendment to the second is that instead of insurance of such bonds, it's the issuance of such bonds.
Thank you very much.
I think that was the only thing that made a fundamental change in the vote.
there is bond insurance too.
I
Yes.
always think of insurance, so.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Jeff?
All I want to say is how pleased I am that we have this motion and how the fact of just want to acknowledge the fact of the hard work that was done to make me and I think the other school committee members and our member towns feeling comfortable in doing this vote despite being in the midst of the chaos of the pandemic. And I do feel very comfortable doing this. And it's because of the work that was done, the clarity of the presentations, the expertise that was brought in, and the conversations that the administration and others have had with our member towns. So for all those reasons, I'm very happy that we have this vote, and I'm very happy and I feel very comfortable. I'm going to vote yes for it.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Any other discussion or questions? Ford.
I'm going to be very short. This is the right thing to do. It was in our original plan when we started almost a decade ago for a new building and have a complex like this. And we discussed it from the very beginning. I've always said that I can imagine students, and I'm not talking about Minuteman students, I'm talking about young children who might be using the fields, looking up at a new building and thinking, this is a great place to go and we should be, proud to be here. I think it's the icing on the cake. And I've said that from the very beginning. It is truly the icing on the cake of what we're doing. But this is important for the students. It's especially today, so they can be outside, so they can have athletics, so they can bond together. I think athletics can do a lot for some students who might be academically challenged, but yet they're very good in the athletic field. They can bring that confidence back into the classroom. So I think it's so important that we're doing this. So I thank the communities, and I'm obviously going to support it. It's important.
Okay, thank you, Ford. Judy.
I just wanted to say thank you to the financial subcommittee for putting this together, and for the staff and Dr. B for being available for all these meetings. So it's been a team approach, so thank you.
Alice, and then Steve.
I'm going to be happy to vote for this. There's been a lot of effort from the various people involved in the construction and design, and everybody down through the various committees that have worked hard to make it an acceptable package. And I was happy to not have tremendous opposition in my community. So I'm happy to support it. And I think it's really great that things got aligned up so that we could move forward.
Okay, thank you. Steve.
Yes, thank you. I think absolutely I support it, and it's certainly the right thing to do. A couple questions that kind of filtered back to me from some Concord folks is why now? Why can't we wait till the regular town meeting cycle? And I think, the numbers certainly speak for themselves. Everybody, all the contractors are hungry because of COVID. You can't beat the interest rates. I mean, the timing is just absolutely right. And us on the finance committee recognized that early on when we saw the numbers. So, I think it's good for the kids. I'm a retired jock, so I certainly know the benefits of sports and team building. And I think that the financing is just the right time right now. So I totally endorse this project.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? I think I would like to also just echo what folks have said and the appreciation for how much work has gone into this. And I'd like to note that it is not, all the meetings are not done. I know in my town, Ed met yesterday with the Board of Selectmen. He's going to be meeting with the Finance Committee next week. So there's still sort of the outreach to towns, is continuing.
No, thanks for bringing that up, Pam. I tried to allude to that in my email that I sent you, because each town has a little bit different process, and we sort of have to honor the process, and the comfort level is there throughout, but we still have some steps to go through. And, I look forward to that. I know we have a meeting in Dover on Thursday, Lexington on Thursday, Acton, and then Tuesday. You're absolutely right. The conversations continue, and they will not end. Even after this is passed, even after the 60 days, I really, I don't know how to describe it. I'm kind of excited about learning the towns again. I mean, I know them really well, and I know a lot of people in the towns, but I enjoy talking about Minuteman and sharing with people what we do. So
I had one question from a resident in town after last night's meeting, and it's not totally pertinent to this conversation, but the question was about any kind of revenue that exceeds what's required for either debt payment or what we intend to put aside that goes into that revolving fund. If that revolving fund gets big enough, can that money be transferred to the general fund? Or does it?
no.
Okay, I didn't think so.
It stays in the revolving fund because you have to expend the revenues on the asset that generated the revenues.
I thought so. I just wanted to double check. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, then we'll move to our roll call vote. Pam Nurse Acton, yes.
Michael Ruderman, Arlington, yes.
Steve Ledoux, Concord, yes.
Ford Spalding, Dover, yes.
Jennifer Leone Lancaster, yes.
Judy Crocker, Lexington, yes.
Jeff Stuland Needham, yes.
Alice DeLucas, Joe, yes.
Okay, unanimous vote. And again, congratulations to everyone who has been working so hard on this.
Could I just mention that I
Thank
think
you.
that this is a 2/3 vote and not a weighted vote, is that correct?
That's correct. We needed 6 votes of the membership to pass it. And
So
we got eight.
right, the minutes should show that it is a 2/3 vote, and we had 6 was 2/3, so we have it.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, Jeff.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, I feel like we should do something, but again, congratulations to everyone. I guess we'll just move on to our agenda.
There's champagne popping in the background.
Right. You know, toast with my water. Enrollment task force.
Okay, I do have a few comments, but first, I think that we have some information that the administration would like to present on applications to date and on the October 1 report, and then I'll have a few comments.
Yeah, well, according to Anthony, and George can correct me, we're ahead by quite a bit from the same in terms of applications received than this time last year. Mostly from member towns. Anthony's been doing yeoman's work in providing individual tours. I think he has over 60 tours, individual tours with just one parent and a child. Also, we've had, we've made some progress in, I think, some of the communities that we were having, I don't want to say resistance, but we weren't getting full access to the 8th graders. That seems to be turning around in regards to support from the middle school principals in those communities. So we've always enjoyed gold star access to our middle schools, unlike a lot of vocational technical regional schools in the state. And so that seems to have moved off the mark and it's going in the right direction. Tomorrow night, we have our second virtual parents' night, I guess we call it, George, which is a Zoom kind of webinar. We've been promoting it through social media and through the middle schools. Our October, I don't know if there's anything else coming up that I should talk about in regards to that. In your packet on page 4 is the October 1 report, which shows as of October 1, 634 students, 467 from member towns, from just the 9 member towns, and 80 from the declarant towns, as we affectionately call them. You know, that's 500 and quickly 40 kids from just member towns. And we still have 88 other kids from other non-member towns, mostly from about 49 kids from Watertown. And so you may recall that the building was designed for 628. So we are over the design enrollment, which in COVID doesn't mean a thing. But we're doing a, I guess I'll talk about it now. We're doing some thinking about how can we have more kids, total enrollment in the school. Let's just forget about COVID for a minute. How can we get to 700 kids or even 800 kids safely, effectively, and not, you know, being detrimental to the learning and teaching environment? And I shared some of those ideas and thoughts and some of the data analysis that we've done with the enrollment task force. And just for everybody's benefit, if you look just at the CTE, the Career and Technical Education square footage that we have in the building that is built, we could easily have 800 students, easily, assuming that our animal science program is fully enrolled. And assuming that we did a few things to the building, but so the limitation, the pinch point is the number of academic classroom spaces, because when the building was built, the design square footage that's associated with classroom space is very, well, it's difficult to get creative with. The MSBA requirements and square footage standards were met. So we're looking at ways that we might possibly add academic space to our existing footprint, as well as we have 2 foundations that are already built, one on the north end, one on the south end of each of the campus. Then we also have the what was known as the Tremont School, which is 16,000 square feet. And, you know, we're looking at the possibility, what would that look like if we had 10 academic classrooms over there? So it's nothing that we're, you know, proposing right now. We're going to get another large class of freshmen next year. And I think we have to start planning for the future about how do we maximize the enrollment. Because, you know, 800 kids in that building, the cost per pupil, which we are criticized for and questioned about every year I've been here, even with 50% of our kids being in IEPs, begins to go in a direction that's more in alignment or less than our sister and brother schools around the Commonwealth. It's a real opportunity to get the 800 kids that we always knew we could get. And having a waiting list, I've said this before, and I'm going to keep saying it, so forgive me. A waiting list is nothing to be proud of, whether it's member town kids or non-member town kids, as far as I'm concerned. And we've got an opportunity to add another 150 kids to the building, and we're going to look at it closely. We're going to work with FinCom, with the enrollment task force, and hopefully have some ideas for the school committee to review.
Okay.
I'm actually seeing some questions.
Sure.
Jeff, would you like to take them now or go through your report?
Well, let me make my few brief comments, and then questioners can ask whoever they want to ask questions of. So the enrollment task force members are absolutely delighted with the sort of presentations that the superintendent have made regarding a number of issues, including the possibilities of expanding the student body at minimum for what would really be a very modest price. And the reason for that has to do with the planning of the building that we have. If the building that we constructed was not designed in the way that it was, at the capacity that it was, then none of this thought process would have been possible. There's also a lot of possibilities with synergy with what the state is exploring, because they are exploring the idea of waiting lists and access, both of which are ideas that have drove us to developing a smaller school, because the state was not involved in those issues in the past. So the enrollment subcommittee is taking a long-term view of its goals and not an annual view of its goals. And we're working on a series of goals, you know, some of which will be completed this year, some may take many years to complete, depending on finances and willingness and what the state does. But they include things, without going into any detail, the feasibility of expanding enrollment to 800, which brings a lot of benefits. Ensuring that all the communities utilize Minuteman effectively, because we know that some communities still do not take full advantage of the school. Increasing diversity of the student population, which will dovetail possibly very well with increasing the base number of students that can attend the school. And of course, overseeing enrollment efforts at the MTI, the Minuteman Technical Institute. All that, as well as understanding that although we have high enrollment now, we still have to look at the nuts and bolts of the admissions process and communications and all that stuff, not rest on the fact that we have a few good years, but we have to all keep that in the back of our mind, as well as these other projects. So we're all really happy with the work that the superintendent and the administration has put into this, and I think that something will come of it over the next few years. I think there's a pretty good likelihood. So that's really all I have to say.
Okay, Ford.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jeff, because I think that the administration and the entire school is working towards doing just what Ed talked about and you talked about. What's striking to me is what's happened in the last 2 years. And when I look at the freshman enrollment in the last 2 years, it's been approximately 180 students. And we had to cap it last year, as we all know. But what's also striking to me is the really huge increase in in-district students from the 9 towns, how it's growing. And I think what's happened is because of what Minuteman has done over the last, well, I'm going to say 10 years or so, we're a different kind of school than I think many parents perceive. And I think they're looking at Minuteman as a huge opportunity for their students and for the right student to come and develop career opportunities in the future. I always said an 8th grade student that comes here is pretty damn smart. They're thinking about their career in 8th grade. I certainly didn't, and a lot of other people didn't. I think it's wonderful, the perception that's out there about our type of education. So I just think, George, what your team has done the last 2 years is, just awesome. And it's not just because it's a new building. I think it's the hard work that you're in there. And I think our communities are appreciating and looking at it. One sidelight on the town that sends the least amount of people. The other day, I sent an email that Ed sent to us to our middle school principal, who I happen to know. I'm not exaggerating. Within 2 minutes, he got back to me and said, we're sending it to all 8th grade parents. Now, I don't know if any of those parents are going to go get online, but that's the enthusiasm that's coming out of the school. And I think that says a lot.
Thanks, Ford. Any other questions on enrollment? And, and I would like to just add, my appreciation for how creative the staff is being right now in figuring out ways to, to be, to be thinking about enrollment and recruitment for next year's freshman class, given, our current environment. And, I think that they've done a lot of work to figure out, ways of, reaching out to 8th graders, reaching out to families, being able to bring people in for one-on-one tours. And, I just want to show my appreciation for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, Ed, you talked about planning for full in-person learning. Is there anything else you wanted to say on that?
Well, obviously the trends are not going in a good direction right now. Mm-hmm. We have had some conversations at the amongst the administrative staff and other, we're hoping. We've had no cases at all in school, none at all. The cases that we hear about have, there've been families that have been somewhere or whatever, or we've taken some pretty effective steps, and kids are being very good about wearing their masks, about social distancing. It's really remarkable. It's just incredibly remarkable, the commitment to safety and health and to caring for one another by wearing their masks and keeping distant. And we have this idea in our heads, and I'll keep you informed of it. We're not made any decisions. We have this idea in our heads that what would we need to do to have all the kids back sometime in January? And the reason we're looking at January is because it's sort of a natural break in the semester. We had thought about trying to have more kids in the building between now and Christmas, but the data isn't going that way. Even though they changed the damn red, green, yellow thing. But when you look at the data, it's ridiculous. We had, like, Lancaster went up 3 times in the number of cases, and it went from red, it went down, and So we're getting, valid questions from families. Well, you're all green or yellow. Why don't you have all the kids in school? Well, when you look at the numbers, I'm sorry, I'm still looking at the data. And I think what's happened is that the governor and the commissioner are really encouraging us to look at how to bring more kids in. And I've also heard from other superintendent colleagues that, for instance, Cape Cod Tech is bringing in back, they'll be up to 75% enrollment. And they're doing a staggered day during the day, and they asked for a waiver on the time and learning requirements, and they were immediately granted the waiver because they were bringing more kids in. So when we see that kind of flexibility from the Department of Ed, we have to sort of pause and kind of reflect on that. So what does that mean for us? So we're continuing to meet about it. We have no recommendation, but whatever recommendation we have, I want to make sure that the school committee understands it and votes on it. So I don't know if there's any questions about that. Jeff has one from Death Valley.
Oh, if only. I just have a comment. And the comment is that there is I'm talking about also my Newton experience as well as what's happening at Minuteman. There's a lot of pressure in Newton, we are at the high school still fully remote. There's a lot of pressure from certain parents to go to a hybrid schedule. A fairly contentious presentation happened last night at the Newton School Committee meeting, in which a new possible hybrid schedule was presented to go from fully remote to hybrid. And one of the possibilities was to have 4 cohorts, okay, because we have a little problem with space in our building. So kids would be coming in, 2 days every 2 weeks under that plan. And the problem is the trade-off involved, because the trade-off is that yes, the kids would come in, 2 days every week or every 2 weeks or whatever it is. But they also said that the actual time in learning, the actual learning that would occur would be greatly lessened. Because by definition, the hybrid schedule they proposed has less effective teaching time than the fully remote schedule. So, so we really have to, when we have more, and Minuteman's a little different because, they got to get into the shops or else they can't learn that stuff, right? So it's a little bit different there. But when you move to a new schedule, you have to be really honest about what the trade-offs are. And the other thought that I have in my mind is, and this is, we don't know for sure, is that I'm saying end of March, April is the end date for this, when we can start going back into the buildings more comfortable. And we may know more about that in January when you're talking about the time frame for making your decision as to whether you should have more kids in the school at once. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering if it really is wise to have a kind of a bridge thing. We're going to do this special thing, which has certain risks in it for a month or two that may, at least in Newton, reduce learning, as opposed to staying the course if the end of this really is the end of March. So I just want to throw these comments on the air. We'll know a lot more in January than we know now about what's really going to happen. And that may inform our decisions to some extent. But every time you change the plan, there are trade-offs, possibly to teacher health, possibly to time and learning, and they all have to be balanced. And so far, I've been extremely impressed by the balances brought up by the administration and the teachers at Minuteman. And I'm glad to hear that you're delaying a decision on this until January.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. I see Alice with her hand up.
I just want to say I'm glad to know that you're thinking this way, because I think it helps to know that you're thinking ahead. And I also think that when the new administration and the federal level comes in and the new restored faith that everybody will have in the CDC after scientists are reappointed and so forth and allowed to do their work, I think that there will be better guidance that we're getting and possibly better supply chain of equipment. Especially as they go forward with the vaccine trials and stuff, they're going to end up having a lot of supply chain stuff that they have to really nail down to effectively administer that vaccine too. So I think, waiting until the next year starts is very sensible because there's still an element of chaos for the next several weeks, at least, maybe more. But I'm glad to know what you're thinking.
Yeah. Any other comments?
The next thing on my agenda is just to let you know, we're preparing a grant application for the Minuteman Technical Institute. It's, I forget the name of the grant program, but it is funded in the governor's budget at 4.9 million. And we've been, it's not a lot of money, but it will get us more students, adult students, into the MTI programs in advanced manufacturing and carpentry. We've already had commitments from 5 companies to work with us in terms of placing students that complete the programming. And we also have 3 MOAs with the 3 career centers that cover the our region. That gets submitted on the 20th. And I'm sure we'll get it. Oh, I shouldn't say stuff like that. That ends my report.
Yeah, I hope you're knocking on wood or something. Judy, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. In the packet, Dr. V was included the remote schedule. And
Yeah,
this
George is going to talk about that next, I think.
Okay, my apologies.
No, that's fine.
No, you're a good bridge to our next item, principal's report and remote schedule.
Okay, so, one of the advantages of being at Minuteman is that we're like a small town. We're a very tight community, and we don't have to hide behind some Byzantine bureaucratic structures. We're really, really close to all of our kids. We're close to our parents. We're able to talk to our teachers. And we've been listening as we've rolled out our original, hybrid schedule and our remote academic schedule, which, after a couple of weeks of really listening to parents, through various means, whether they contacted me directly or they've contacted other people, talking with kids and talking with teachers, we decided that we needed to make some adjustments to the remote learning schedule. I know for myself, I think teaching has been in a bit of an existential crisis. It's very difficult, to teach primarily through a computer. This isn't what people want to do. I've read certain things like it's going great. It's okay. But if that's your only expectation is okay, then you don't work at Minuteman, because we expect more, we've achieved more. And, I think probably about 2 weeks before we rolled out that schedule, I had 3 different conversations with 3 different very experienced teachers who I would say define Minuteman in many ways. 2 of them broke down in tears talking about just the difficulties they're experiencing with this. Another, I kind of let him go and just let him I know he wasn't yelling at me, but he was just sort of letting it go. And I thought, this is how guys his age have a heart attack. Frankly, I was a little concerned, but I mean, so it's really a lot of anecdotal things that we can pick up. We don't have to do, extensive surveys and all that. We just listen, and then we respond, and then we talk to people. So the 2 biggest issues that were really coming up were the amount of time that kids and faculty were on the screen. So screen fatigue was just a real big concern. Number 2 was the ability to be able to give kids individual attention. There are tools that you can manipulate within teams to, create small groups and have meetings with kids, but it's awkward, it's slow. If you don't hit the right button, suddenly everybody hears your one-on-one conversation, which you didn't want to have happen. So, and kids are falling behind. We were hearing that, and it just wasn't good. So, some of us in administration, we met with lead teachers. We had 2 weeks of meetings with lead teachers where, we brought up the issues, we defined what the issues were, and then we put it out to them to say, gather up some ideas. We have some ideas, but why don't you gather up some ideas? We met again, kind of put all those ideas out on the table of different proposals for a schedule. And you can see that we have an updated remote schedule. The major features are that we reduce some of the class time in each period. So we were working at 45 minutes to down to 32. And what we really added in were what we call facilitated support time, to make sure that teachers have an opportunity to work with kids one-on-one, much more so, and give kids a break from, they don't have to necessarily be on the computer. They can read. We put it out to parents that this is an advantage, a time for them to get help. But, if they want to go for a quick jog and whatever, maybe that's what you need, whatever you need. But teachers are there to help out. So far, the response from parents and from teachers and so far from kids has been positive. I think they really appreciate it. We're coming up on the end of the term, so I think that's playing into it a little bit, that they're, finishing off those final assignments that they have due. But I think it was important to respond to the kids and to the parents and to the teachers. Say, we care, we're listening, and we're going to make an adjustment. This really only affects academics because, as it turns out, CTE taught remotely basically mirrors that exact schedule. They're doing some time where they're working with kids, and then they log off and have the kids meet with them a little bit later, and then maybe at the end of the day. So this sort of matches that. Although I will make the comment that CTE teachers are also, when you're talking about the remote, it's very difficult. Kids want to come to Minuteman because they want to do the hands-on. This is our value add. This is what makes us unique in the marketplace. It's CTE, and the kids want to be there. The teachers want them to be there because at some point it's just, we're doing all that we can, and it's okay. But if you really want to teach a kid to wire or get proficient in a laboratory, you kind of got to have them in the laboratory at some point, So that, anyway, but we basically model the academic program after what we were really seeing in CTE. So far, so good. So I don't know if there's any questions. We did do I did host a session, a live event with the NPA for parents to talk about the schedule changes, so people could check in. I answered some questions after that. So we've done it that way. And of course, working with Dan, we've done a lot of communication around it. So the rollout's been pretty smooth, and I think it's going well. But does anybody have any questions on that? No. Alice?
Yeah, I just wanted to know how the connectivity is working. Like, I know we've set it up for all the kids, and we've got the kids who are managing that. And I just want to know, is that going smoothly? Are there hiccups?
There are some. We have about 12 kids or so, at least, that this year that we've ended up kind of covering to make sure that they're getting Wi-Fi at home for various reasons. And I'll talk about this with the MCAS update, but some of the computers are aged, and they really weren't they're showing that they really weren't made for this level of use, that we're currently demanding on them. So we'll get reports of slow machines. There's just not so much we can do, doing all that we can do, to keep those things running as efficiently as possible. But I think kids have been, I haven't, anytime we've had a kid or a parent say, I can't connect, and it's a Wi-Fi issue, we're able to address that right away. If it's a speed issue, those get a little, those are a little tougher to really kind of fix. We don't even have backups to lend them anymore.
Thank you.
Jeff,
Just for contrast, on Monday and Wednesday in Newton, the kids have 4 90-minute blocks on Mondays and Thursdays. 4 90-minute blocks almost back to back, which is rather painful. But what I really want to say is that your staff, I don't know if they understand how lucky they are that they have an administration that actually can listen to them and then react to suggestions that they make. That's very unusual in a public school system. It's certainly nothing that I have available to me. But no, they are really extremely lucky. And I appreciate the relationship that you have with your staff, that you can make that work and make changes like this on the fly under these circumstances. So kudos to both the staff for bringing up the issues and the administration, taking them seriously and working these issues out.
Thank you.
thank you. And Judy, did George respond to your question earlier?
Well, actually, my question is more a wish list item. And this particular school year is definitely not the time to bring this up, but only because we're talking, you mentioned the schedule. And I apologize because I'm relatively new to this group. So if the conversation's been had, I'll do research elsewhere. Has Minuteman ever considered changing their start times, being a high school? 7:45 is early to be at school. It's even earlier to be at the bus stop. So that's what I'm saying. This is a wish list item.
Yes, we have considered it, and we've decided not to. Mainly because we have kids from 35 different communities. And when there was an effort in Middlesex County to, start high school later. And a lot of those towns, they kind of did a MOU with each other around athletics and stuff. It would be very problematic for us to do it at this point in time, given the fact that there are so many kids from so many different towns. Transportation was also another issue for those non-member communities.
Okay, well, thank you.
We're not opposed to it. Yeah, we're not opposed to it. We understand the research. I mean, high school kids do better if they sleep later, but we don't have a practical way to implement it at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems is that, then you have kids in Lancaster getting home at 8 o'clock at night already. Yeah, they get on the bus at 6 o'clock in the morning, but, I don't know how you, with the just expanse of the district, I think they have to start at 7:45.
Like I said, just putting it out there, and that's why I call it a wish list item. So thank you for the history of this.
Valid question.
Okay. Okay, George, are you ready to move on to MCAS update?
Yeah, MCAS, just want to make the committee aware that we do have to roll out MCAS testing for juniors this year. They announced that very early in the school year. We found out the dates of testing 2 weeks ago, which are going to be in January. They also let us know, in September sometime, that they were changing the form of the test. So for 2 years, we've been preparing the kids for one version, the next generation version, they call it. And they're reverting back to the legacy test because they feel like it'll give them more data to help them better judge, frankly, us, not so much the kids, but if you're asking my opinion. So we're underway working toward that, getting ready for it. We're going to start offering some Saturday classes. Students will start getting that. They've already begun getting some information, but we're going to give them even more detailed information to register for Saturday support classes for MCAS. As I said, with the computers, it's a real concern. Some of these kids, we did it before we got shut down in March. We did a test, because you have to do a test to make sure the computers are working. And we noticed then that we were having some of these lag issues with running test nav and the rest. So we're anticipating we're going to have some issues, although I've been working with Victor, he is the best IT director I've ever worked with. And, our plan right now is we're going to wipe out everybody out of the school. We're going to need every available station desktop to use for the test, because we don't have any backup laptops to give kids. The first time we really went 100% computers back in the old building, and even during some retests, we always had a supply of backups. So if your laptop went down, we just shovel you a new one. We don't have any. They're all out, so it's a little bit of a nail biter from an IT perspective for sure. But I think we'll work through it, and we'll have those Saturday sessions to try to get the kids ready. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say it on behalf of I got to stand up for the kids, and I got to stand up for the faculty. And I just got to say, I have no idea what the state is thinking by having these kids take an MCAS exam. To me, it's unconscionable. We spent a lot of time in the fall learning about trauma and its effects on kids because of COVID. And all I see is this is another trauma-inducing event that we're going to be putting the kids through. I think they've been tortured enough, and now we're going to, force them to, I said it to a friend, we're going to tie them to a stake of high stakes now, as if they haven't been through enough already. So I'm really hoping that the state will come to its senses. I know there are some petitions out there to make sure the juniors don't have to take it as a graduation requirement. Frankly, I don't think the sophomores should have to take it as a graduation requirement either. They've just been through enough. And this is just not the time. We always support MCAS at Minuteman. We step up big whenever we're called upon. I'm proud of you can just look at the record that we got a blue ribbon, and that's primarily driven by what we've done on standardized testing. So we don't back away from challenges. We're not afraid of it. It's just, this isn't the time. This is like saying, I need you to play, game 7 in the World Series in a hurricane, and instead of a bat, here's a golf club. Good luck, go for it. I'm really hoping that it goes away. But in the event that it doesn't, we're taking every step we need to make sure that the kids are ready to perform.
Okay, thank you, George. I see a couple questions. I saw Jennifer, then Jeff.
So January, is there, the likelihood that they're going to want large groups of people into a small space or reasonably small space in January is slim. Are they giving you any guidance on how soon they're going to, because you're going to have to make preparations. This is a huge commitment by the school. Are they giving you any date where they're going to change their mind? Or, this is insane.
No, there's no date, and we already are making those preparations. Like I said, we're going to have to flip who's in and out of the building. And it looks like right now there'll be some remote CTE happening. That's what will happen for remote. One group of students will just have basically work assigned to them in academics, because every single academic teacher, guidance counselor, therapist is going to be wrapped up in some location working with the kids. And that's a little bit of that nail biting thing we're working through, because some kids, we have 50% on an IEP. So we have a certain amount of kids who require one-to-one lessons. Well, they have to have a functioning laptop, so, we have to really pick and choose what kids we put in a computer lab, and is it, can we spread them out enough, and to make sure
and have enough teachers to supervise them all. That's a huge commitment.
Yeah, we usually do that way. It's just, we got to map it out in this new building, aware of the fact that we're tied to probably a few spaces because of the computer needs. So that's a factor we haven't seen before. So we're just really getting that underway, and that's business as usual in some ways, but
right.
It's just the time that gets me. To find out on Halloween, basically, you've got 2 months with a Thanksgiving break and a Christmas break in there, and 2 Veterans Day, another, not that, that's just another day, Martin Luther King Day, all these days where you're like, okay, we're losing time to really get things together here. It's tough.
Well, and then on top of that, the state must expect that there's going to be a higher fail rate just because these kids haven't been in school since March. Are they giving any consideration to that? I mean,
How they're going to scale it?
yeah,
I think that's partially why they want to go back to the legacy exam, is they're trying to figure that out. But the statistical part of my brain kind of gets where they're going. But, if you've worked with kids enough and you train them, if I train you to write an argumentative essay, that's great. And then instead what you say is, no, I don't want an argumentative essay. I want more of a narrative. Well, that's a slightly different skill. I know it's all writing, but that's why I said it's sort of like playing baseball with a golf club. Like,
right.
Yeah, I get what I'm trying to do here, but you changed it a little bit right here at the end. That's not as easy as you think. Although we've been doing that since September. We've been incorporating, going back to some of our old stuff, but it still kind of feels a little unfair to me, to those kids.
Okay.
Okay, I saw Jeff, then Alice.
Okay, so George, actually, a golf club in a hurricane would have been beneficial for the Red Sox this year. So I'm not sure that's just a bad thing. But I don't like the idea, of course, of you having 0 backup computers. Can we buy a few computers for backup in the meantime?
But what I've looked in with Victor, and it's, we're trying to find vendors. We talked about renting them. We've got, I work with, I have 2 people Danielle Tagg and Kevin Sheeran, who are MCAS coordinators and have been for years. So what we're trying to do a little bit is figure out kids who, really selecting the kids that, okay, we can probably put you 13, 14 in a room, and these are the kids who are probably going to whip right through the test anyway. Maybe borrow their computers, because it's just going to be when you do the MCAS, you're locking down everything anyway. All you can really use is the test nav stuff. So that's kind of how we're going to cheat it a little bit, but it's not ideal because I have to give you someone else's computer in the event of an emergency.
So it's not just a money issue, it's also availability issue of the machines because of the COVID obviously has made supply chains. Okay, so I understand that. So if if it was money and you needed just a few for extras, you can, come to us.
Sure.
Robert can shift some budget items around and we can deal with that. And again, believe me, I understand the MCAS issues very well. And it's not just a little unfair, it's a lot unfair. And we don't need one more thing.
Okay, Alice.
I follow the MASC listserv conversations, and they have been talking about MCAS, but they haven't talked about the question of getting all the kids in a place for a long period of time to take the test. And I wonder, has anyone brought that high enough up the chain to get the attention of people at the Department of Education who could maybe have an influence on this?
On that issue, not to my knowledge. I know for us, that's, again, a consideration is, okay, can we fit 12, 13? What's the max number? If almost like a shop, really. If you're in DVC, for example, you're sitting in front of a computer. We already have 12 or 13 kids spread out in there, say in that shop, and they're basically in there all day. So, we can do that, but that's a limiting factor for us because even if we have 20 machines in there, well, we got to pull them out and relocate them and set them back up somewhere else where we can put another half a dozen kids. But I've not heard that, but we're going to take in the social distancing aspect. That's part of the planning.
One of the things I think I was not aware of until this happened in the spring was that the commissioner does not have the authority to waive the MCAS requirement. There's federal requirements and then there's legislative action that needs to be taken, and it's sort of not a Department of Ed decision, which I didn't know.
Yeah,
frankly.
and on that, Ed, because I heard the exact same thing, that it's not within DESI's purview to be
Right.
able to cancel MCAS, but I do believe that there is something in the, I don't know if it's a budget amendment or a freestanding legislation before the legislature right now regarding MCAS. So just as a point of information.
Carl Schaefer.
Yeah, Carl Schaefer. So good on the good news. We have Allison Berry. We nominated her to be a recipient of the Carl Schaefer Memorial Award. It's to recognize an outstanding CTE teacher who has done a great job.
There's Allison.
Continues to progress in her field. And I can tell you that every conversation I have with her, she's almost always in some other class learning something else. I think she's recently taken a class in public finance. She's working on her master's degree. So it was really, that was the easiest, nomination and second process, we've been a part of. She's been a tremendous help just all these years with admissions, managing the website when we had nothing, so it was really, she's a team player. I'm really glad that she has been being recognized with this award.
Congratulations, Allison.
Congratulations.
Love you, Allison.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Emma was very impressed, Allison.
I miss Emma.
She misses you immensely.
Yeah, if this wasn't COVID, she'd be getting a free trip to, I think, where was it this year? Las Vegas or Florida?
Nashville.
Wherever CTE. Oh, Nashville. Sorry.
Yeah.
We'll make it up to you.
Well, congratulations again, Allison.
Thank you.
Well done. Thanks, Allison.
Thank you.
I saw Alice's hand up earlier. Alice, did we address your question?
Well, congratulations to Allison Berry. I do think we should try to figure out what the law is and advocate for some relief. I mean, if there is an option to do that, we're the people who are supposed to do that. So I was just looking to see if it might be House Bill 4947 seems to have a lot of signers on it, but I don't see any of the people I'm familiar with from our district. So there might be another one out there. It would be nice to know what it is, and we should probably take some kind of action, just try to get our legislators to support it. I don't like to just wring hands and worry and say, gee, I hope the whole school doesn't get sick. It's or that they're being unfairly treated. And when you think about the whole state, some of the kids aren't even in their school buildings at all. So how are they going to do it? I mean, it's ludicrous, and they base these scholarships on them and stuff. The whole thing is just crazy. So if we could get any kind of information about what actual bill it is that we would want to support, I think we should try to do that.
Alice, I'm just, and again, I'm sorry, haven't gotten into this in more detail. But I think what I saw was amendment number 460 to the state budget, but I can try and look up more information on that. It's to cancel the MCAS for this year.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, now I'm looking for that. I've lost my agenda here.
Bobby's up.
Finance. I don't know who's going first, Bob or Steve?
I'll defer to Bob because basically his whole report encapsulates our last finance committee meeting.
Thank you, Steve. And we'll start off with the first quarter reports, which again, most of these agenda items we reviewed in the finance committee, and the finance committee's already reviewed them. But we like to bring them to the full school committee so that you can review them as well. Within those 4 reports, we'll start off with the revolving fund report. Several of our trades accounts and food service have negative balances, and we shared that in the end of the year report. And that's likely to remain an issue throughout this year. That's because, as I shared before, these departments have had their revenues severely curtailed due to complying with COVID, state and DESE requirements. CCA can only have so many students in it. We can't, it's half of the number of students that we would normally get tuitions from. So they're just going to be collecting half of the tuition. But I would like to thank the school committee for making the salary and energy expense transfers out of the rental account. As you can see, that account now has sufficient balances to support our athletic field project that you also voted on. So it's nice that we're monitoring these things and making sure the revolving accounts are set and appropriate. And lastly, I was pretty excited that our capital fee and tuition revenues remain strong this year. And again, Dr. B talked about the increasing enrollment in our building, and that's a direct result of that. So the revenues are relatively strong with the exception of some of the COVID curtailing of revenue. Does anybody have any questions on those report, or would you like to move on to the next report?
Oh, my. Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm just wondering, the problems with the revenue from the cafeteria must be universal to all schools that are open. I wonder if there's any of these grants that we are getting or that are available are specific to that particular thing, because it has to be everybody. Nobody's making money on this right now, right?
Yeah, you are correct. These issues are across the board. I see it in my listservs of finance directors. There haven't been grants to offset those expenses yet, and we have done some work to reduce that deficit, and we'll continue to look at how we can reduce it and where we can hopefully save some money and not expend as much. But it is what it is, as far as it's across the board and across the state, as you pointed out.
It also reflects, unfortunately, on what's happening to all our restaurants, because they're looking at the same balance sheet that you have here.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other questions? Okay, want to move on?
Sure. The next report is the student activity report, and there's not a lot of activity on it. You'll see that there's been very little activity. There's only one donation to the FFA for horticulture for $150 from the Lincoln Garden Club. So we appreciate that. And by the nature of the fact that we haven't been able to run a lot of our clubs, I don't expect there to be any or too much activity this account this year for the rest of the year either. So there's just the one item on there that you'll see as far as activity. Any questions on that document? Then we'll move on. We have the general fund report, the summary sheet, and then the detail sheet. And on the summary sheet, I like to identify any areas where we're overexpended. Being the first quarter, there's not a lot of telltale here. There are some that haven't been expended yet, but it's just because we haven't encumbered it yet. So those are explainable why there's still money in those accounts. But we always are concerned with any accounts that we're overexpended on. And I wrote some notes or comments on the side to explain them. You can see district technology. George was talking about all the money we put into technology to get us to the point where we're at. But as a result, we still have a negative balance there. Fortunately, the good news is, and I'm going to talk about it in one of my other agenda items, is that the coronavirus relief fund municipal grants should help us bring back some of that money and offset that, so that number could actually get better. There's a couple of other items. The curriculum director's line item, we had shifted some salaries, and we have plenty of salary that we can draw upon in other areas, so it won't be a problem. But that was a result of some of the salary shifting that we had done when you had made those adjustments. Security services, we have additional programs running. George talked about the extra programs where we're bringing kids in, support programs on Saturdays and over the vacations. And so there are additional hours. We also have a lot of Saturday programming going on that's required additional security services. Utility services were very hard to predict last year because of the fact that we really didn't, we never had a full year in this building. And so unfortunately, the heating is overexpended at this point, and we'll continue to monitor that. And then there was some retirement increases, and that increased the retirement insurance. So those are the items that we're overexpended on. We'll continue to monitor them and find areas where we have surpluses so that we can offset them and keep our budget balanced. And of course, that's the summary sheet. The detail sheet just adds extra line items for you to see a little bit more detail into it. So I don't know if anybody has any extra questions on those two.
Okay.
Not, well, we can move on. The next agenda item is an update on the capital skills grant. And I provide you with a spreadsheet regarding a competitive grant, the fiscal year 21 skills capital grant that Dr. McQuillan and our CTE directors successfully wrote. And you'll see that we combined the shuttle installation and related software that was originally bid separately into one IFB, and we were able to actually get such a favorable bid that we were able to add additional equipment. We were able to purchase even more equipment and still at the same spending the same amount of money. So it was a good grant, and we were able to get more than we expected. What was most amazing for me was that I was part of the bid process is that I got to do the reference checks, and I learned that this shuttle has been in use in local industries for over a decade, and that these industries said that this particular shuttle had not been down for more than 4 hours for maintenance or repair in over a decade. To me, I thought automated warehouses were, the stuff of Amazon and the big companies, and it was futuristic. I learned that it's locally within our community that there are many companies that are using this futuristic equipment. And thanks to Dr. McQuillan and his efforts, our students are now going to get trained on this cutting edge, futuristic type of equipment. So I think, kudos to Dr. McQuillan for working so hard for us to be able to get this fiscal year 21 skills grant capital on top of the fact that you had already gotten a fiscal 20 capital skills grant in the past. And it really is cutting edge.
Okay, I see one question, Jeff.
Do school committee members going to have an opportunity to drive around in the picker truck?
In the what?
It says here, sit down picker truck.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, if you want to, we can give you for 13 hours, we'll actually give you a credential where you could go work when you're not at school teaching remotely from the Death Valley. Amazon is looking for a few good people.
Jeff could work in the chocolate department.
After teaching this year, I feel like working anywhere. It's not because the kids are great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good news on the capital skills grant.
Yes, it is. My next agenda item is an update on the Coronavirus Relief Fund municipal grants. I provide you with a chart of the communities that have already committed to funding our COVID-related expenses in their coronavirus municipal grant. And we've already received confirmation from 6 of 9 of the districts. And Dr. Bees, I think, had some informal confirmations, but I'm just counting the ones that I've already worked with, given them some data, and we provided them with the certification letter they need in order to be able to send the funding to us. So we're very excited that our towns support us and continue to support us. And you can see that it's a significant amount of money. And as I shared earlier, it's going to go mostly to a lot of the technology, but also some communication, some software that helps us to do IEPs remotely. It's amazing. The technology has helped us in a lot of ways, and these funds will help to cover that.
Yeah, we'll have all the towns by December.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think they've informally notified us pretty much, but
Alice has a question.
Oh.
Yes.
So my town manager was extremely complimentary about the professional nature of the paperwork that you provided to her, the information, the data, the methodology, everything made it really easy for her to work with it at a town manager level. And she was surprised and pleased by how great a job you guys did.
She came for a tour on Monday too. I didn't tell you, Alice.
Excellent. Okay. So if there's no other questions, the last agenda item is the fiscal year 22 budget update and the process. Many of you are pretty familiar with the process, but I like to give you the budget calendar. As a reference, and we're on target to hold the scheduled meetings that we normally do this time of the year. The next meeting will be the executive team presenting their budget request to the Finance Committee on November 30th. I'm working on the projected expenses for next year so that Dr. B can use them when he does a superintendent's review of the budget. And I'm seeing, some areas where prudence is paying off. The IFB process around transportation and the reduction in staff is going to help reduce some of our costs in transportation and healthcare, or at least level them off. Those are usually big drivers. So I'm getting those. And then, we also have to keep in mind that this is the final year of borrowing for the whole project. So capital debt will increase, but we were expecting that. But also something that we weren't expecting, and it's kind of common sense, we should have, is our insurance costs for the valuation of our property has increased significantly because you have such a beautiful property compared to before. And so our insurance costs, our property insurance valuation has gone up last year, and it'll probably go up again a little bit more this year. And so those are some of the things that we look at when we're preparing the budget. And I just wanted to give you a little update that we're on top of it, that we're following the budget schedule. And those are just some of the trends I wanted to share with you.
Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, anything else, Bob? Oh, no.
Just very briefly, I'm impressed with how smoothly things are going considering. So kudos on that to the finance subcommittee and the administration and Dr. Girardi. So it's nice to see, what you can envision what could happen in the chaos of COVID. Instead, we have a report that we can just, bomb through because things are being handled well. So I just want to mention that.
Thank you, Jeff.
I feel fortunate. It's a great team. So thank you.
Okay, if nothing else, let's move on to the policy subcommittee. Alice.
Hello, we've been going through the MASC policies and comparing them to Minuteman policies. Also the student handbook. And we continue to worry that the policy manual that's on the web is not up to date. It is the main goal of the policy subcommittee for the year to have that fixed. So I just wanted to bring that up, and if anyone wants to go into the arcane reasons why it has to be done, I'll be happy to talk to you at some other time. So for the Byzantine bureaucratic structure.
Alice, if you have a question, do you want to take questions now or wait?
Oh my gosh, it's Jeff. Okay, Jeff, go for it.
I just want to say that maybe we should have a future agenda item on this. The reason being that it's very important to have the policies available and up to date. We've been bitten in the rear on this in the past, and it's probably not that hard a problem to fix, but maybe we should have a formal agenda item so Alice can present what the issue is and we can start looking at solutions to it, just to get it out of the way and make sure that our policies are easily accessible and up to date online. So
Great.
that's what I would hope that a future agenda item in the near future will have this topic. That's it.
Thank you. That would be great. So that now, Mr. Clement or referred earlier to Byzantine bureaucratic structure. And I wrote it down because we are now at the Byzantine bureaucratic structures part of the agenda. So as you remember, we had to adopt a new harassment policy because of the powers that be way above us. And who knows, maybe that will change. But right at the moment, we need to have a vote to approve the removal of the current sexual harassment policy, ACAA, from the policy manual as presented. If we could have a motion to do that.
So moved.
Reluctantly, I will move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
And the reason for this is because it is in conflict, and there's on page 23 of your packet, you can see the whole ACAA policy for anyone who's following along. And then there's a letter from our council explaining why they would like us to remove it. Are there any questions? No questions?
I just have, what is the likelihood that this is possibly going to be reversed? I mean, do you have any concept that,
I think it's 100% likely.
okay, so we're gonna have to do this all over again in 6 months?
Yeah, but you know how the Byzantine
I'm willing to do
government
it. I'm willing to do that for this one, because this is just horrible.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's really pretty weird. I mean, we went through this whole thing in 2018. Now it's 2020. We'll dance the same dance in the spring, but we'll be better at it. So, so I guess we should, Pam, it's the vote time.
Okay, so let's move to the roll call vote. Pam Nurse Acton, yes.
Michael Ruderman, Arlington, yes.
Steve Ledoux, Concord, yes.
Fort Spalding Dover, yes.
Jennifer Leonie Lancaster, yes.
Judy Crocker Lexington, yes.
Jeff Stulam Needham, yes.
Alice DeLuca, yes. That's the end of the policy subcommittees stuff.
Okay, then we'll move on. Don't put yourself on mute. We'll move on to Secretary's report.
I didn't receive any comments on the minutes. So I guess you can go right ahead.
I move the
Okay.
minutes as written.
Second.
Okay. Any comments at this point? Then let's move on to roll call. Pam Nurse Acton, yes.
Michael Ruderman, Arlington, yes.
Steve Ledoux, Concord, yes.
Fort Spalding Dover, yes.
Jennifer Leonie Lancaster, yes.
Judy Crocker Lexington, yes.
Jeff Stulam Needham, yes.
Thank you.
Alice, you're on mute. Back on mute.
I was on, never mind. I'm saying yes.
Great. Okay. So before we move on to a motion for executive session, you all should have received a Zoom link, a separate Zoom link from Julia. Either, I think she sent it out maybe yesterday. So we will be, once we do the motion, we'll be leaving this Zoom platform and moving to that other Zoom link. So could I entertain a motion, and I will read sort of the substance of it, to enter executive session as follows: not to return to open session, to approve the executive session minutes from October 13th, 2020, to approve the executive session minutes from October 27th, 2020, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, namely the superintendent director, Dr. Edward McQuillan.
Second.
And who should remain?
Only school committee members.
Only school committee members.
Well, Julia can remain if you want her to.
Perhaps, do we need Julia for the minutes portion of it? Is the question.
I think for this one, let's keep it just school committee members.
Very good.
Are we going back to open session?
No, it's not to return to open session. So did we have a motion in second?
So moved.
Second.
Pam Nurse Acton, yes.
Michael Ruderman, Arlington, yes.
Steve Ledoux, Concord, yes.
Fort Spalding Dover, yes.
Jennifer Leonie Lancaster, yes.
Judy Crocker Lexington, yes.
Jeff Stulam Needham, yes.
Alice DeLuca, yes.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. So we will leave this Zoom account and go to the one that Julia sent out earlier.
See you there.
See you shortly. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.